From studying law in Sicily to advocating for people with intellectual disabilities in Melbourne, Emily Velastro's career journey proves that sometimes the most valuable skill is saying yes to unexpected opportunities. Professionally Psyched is the podcast that brings you cutting-edge psychology research and real-world insights from our psych community of clinicians, researchers, and educators alike. In our special alumni spotlights, we chat to graduates from our psychology degree programs about how their skills learned in the classroom have become powerful tools supporting diverse career journeys and successes. Hi everyone and welcome to Professionally Psyched. I'm Jessica Muller, PhD candidate in Public Health at James Cook University, and before we get started we'd like to acknowledge the custodians of the land on which we record, and for me today that's the Bindal and Wulgurukaba peoples. And I pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and cultures from wherever you may be tuning in from across the country. In this alumni spotlight, Dr. Amanda Krause speaks with Emily Velastro about navigating from volunteering at the Florey Institute to becoming a behaviour support practitioner with NDIS clients. She shares how JCU's ethics training and psychopathology knowledge translate directly to supporting people with intellectual disability, and why those boring research method classes turned out to be essential daily tools. So grab your headphones and get ready to get professionally psyched about the value of applying classroom knowledge to improve real people's quality of life. Enjoy.
Hi, Emily. Welcome to the podcast. It's really great to have you on board. To start with, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Thanks for having me today. I'm Emily. I'm 31 years old. I was actually born in Sicily, Italy, and I moved to Australia in 2012. I was accepted at JCU in Townsville in 2013, and I actually started off with a Bachelor of Laws and Bachelor of Arts, majoring in psychology. And I eventually discovered that I'm probably not that interested in law, so I just continued with a Bachelor of Psychological Science in 2014. I since then moved to Melbourne. I've been here in Melbourne ever since.
And can you tell me about a little bit of your career progression from graduating to where you are today?
Absolutely. When I graduated JCU, I moved to Melbourne to actually start my honours year. When I was at my honours year, I actually started my first practical experience in the industry. I started by volunteering at a neuropsychology clinic here in Melbourne. It's the Florey Institute. And I was able to get this connection through my honours supervisor at the time. And I was writing my thesis on Alzheimer's disease. I was able to get this volunteering role to essentially administer a memory battery of assessments to older adults. And I continued that for about a year. After that, when I graduated my honours at the end of 2019, we all know what happened at the start of 2020. We had the COVID pandemic, and I was trying to get my first full-time job during the pandemic. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find anything that put me into a direct connection with clients. I did, though, find a role as a research administration officer for a correctional facility here in Melbourne. And I found at the time that the role really fit my interests a lot because I was very interested, and I still am, in forensic psychology. So part of this role, I was supporting a research team to develop mental health programs for offenders. And they were organized by different types of concerns. So there were AOD programs, so alcohol and other drug programs, or violence programs for the more violent offenders. And I found that this role was really formative for my career because it gave me the opportunity to work alongside different professionals because I was working obviously with researchers, but I was also working with clinicians at the same time and larger stakeholders, so the correctional facilities and all of the professionals involved in the correctional facilities. I wasn't able to get a role as a provisional psychologist in the correctional facility So I started looking into other opportunities, and I actually fell into this role, which I am in now, where I am working as a behavior support practitioner. But at the same time, I have the dual role as a provisional psychologist, and I'm able to complete APRA internship. And I'm hopefully finishing my internship this year.
Great. And to follow up on that, is the behavioral support area where you think you intend to stay, or are you looking at additional opportunities?
I'm actually looking for a hybrid opportunity moving forward. I found that my organization is actually going to be expanding into this department in the future, hopefully this year, where as a general psychologist, I might be able to provide therapies to certain clients that we are servicing, but I'm also providing behavior support to others depending on their needs. And I'm hoping to sort of pursue this hybrid role because I do quite enjoy components of both.
Yeah, great. Could you tell us a little bit about sort of your day-to-day responsibilities in your current position?
At the moment, what I do is just support my clients and either their families or their formal supports to manage behaviors that cause a risk of harm to themselves or others, but proactively by improving their quality of life. And this is done either by helping them meet their biological needs, their communication needs, help them increase their engagement in the community or social opportunities, or even helping them meet their sensory needs. I work predominantly with clients who are with an intellectual disability or are receiving services from NDIS. And part of my day-to-day responsibilities are conducting home visits, either at the home or at the school, if we're talking about young people, and collaborating with professionals and stakeholders. So I might be collaborating with other allied health professionals, say like speech pathologists, occupational therapists, psychiatrists, GPs, and I guess as well other stakeholders that might be, say, NDIS providers. And we all sort of share the common goal, which is to help the client improve their quality of life. Unfortunately, there are still some clients under NDIS who cannot advocate for themselves and they need that person to help them do so. And they may not really have a voice to voice certain concerns. So I guess I really enjoy that aspect of my role. Other things that I do, part of behavior support, but they do connect a lot to my degree, is actually conducting psychoeducation to families or to support workers or NDIS providers. Because sometimes I guess that they might be servicing certain clients and they are aware that these clients may have disabilities, mental health disorders, but they may not know exactly what they are, what they look like. And so providing them with that background information and helping them understand how that information may even explain certain behaviors, I find that it's really beneficial in helping them also support the clients further.
That's great. Do you have a certain number of clients? Do you work with them over a certain amount of time, or how do you come in and out of a client's journey?
So my caseload has around between 15 to 20 clients, and I have service clients from 6 months all the way up to even 3 years. It really depends on client goals. So whether their goal is to develop certain independent skills or whether their goals are to minimize certain behaviors of risk. It could even be finding the right medication sometimes. And it can be quite challenging to navigate the space around psychiatrists and GPs and referrals. So it really depends a lot on client goals, but it also really depends a lot on motivation, I guess. So where they might be in their motivation cycle to engage in behavior change, because obviously that can be quite challenging, especially if there are certain clients that I'm supporting who may be nonverbal or may have mobility concerns. And so that obviously prolongs the support even further. Sometimes, though, they do just remain engaged because we are that person that advocates for them.
Yes, I think that advocacy is so important across so many areas and with so many different people, even for ourselves to be able to advocate for our own emotional well-being as well as for others.
Absolutely, I agree.
I wondered what skills or knowledge that you gained in your undergraduate degree might prove really valuable in the role that you have today.
Particularly knowledge around the ethical code and knowledge around the ethical guidelines and how to use them when trying to navigate ethical dilemmas such as confidentiality, consent, working with multiple clients, or having multiple relationships. I find that the NDIS space is a little bit different, obviously, than working in private practice. So your client is not necessarily just the client, it may be the client and their family. So you are navigating those multiple relationships, or those multiple clients. There's also the question around confidentiality, like can information be shared with family members? And maybe certain family members, not all family members. So knowledge of ethics has been crucial. Other things that I've learned in my undergraduate, which have been really useful, has just been knowledge around psychopathology. I do work with a different array of mental health disorders, neurodevelopmental disorders, and lots of different disabilities. And because, like I mentioned before, I do conduct a lot of psychoeducation trainings, it's been really important for me to learn a lot about the different mental health disorders, diagnostic criteria, comorbidities, and even differential diagnosis, and helping to share that information with families, help to share that information with providers and support workers. And all of that started in my undergrad.
You mentioned that you accepted a role in a research role coming out of graduation, and we know that it sometimes can be seen that research is quite separate from somebody's career path. So I wondered if you might be able to speak about how your undergraduate in research methods and statistics might have actually helped you through your career progression.
Oh, 100%. I feel like the information that I gained throughout my undergrad was helpful, even, for example, in being able to compare pre and post result after administering assessments. And in my previous role, for example, I was doing that almost on a daily basis. So when we were conducting these mental health programs, we were taking scores, symptoms of psychopathology or just mental health symptoms pre the program and then post, and comparing those results to see whether the program supported an improvement in symptoms or in coping strategies, for example. And actually, my role, so in my research administration role, was supporting the researchers in analyzing that data. So I was actually collecting that data, I was cleaning the data, I was comparing it, and then I was presenting it to the researchers who would then write the reports. And that was probably a really good introduction into a research role after university. The fact that I had just completed my honors degree, where I had also learned the basics of SPSS, and straight after that, actually use SPSS. I actually just needed a minute to really, I think sometimes when we're at uni, certain subjects we go, I'm never going to use this in real life. Oh, you might. You you actually might. I know SPSS might seem a little bit boring, but maybe, if you take some good notes, you might remember certain things when you actually use them in real life. And I actually still use research skills today because I might not be comparing assessment data, I'm comparing observational data, behavioral data. For example, I might be taking sort of observational notes before implementing certain strategies and then looking at the data afterwards to see whether there's been any change, to see whether the behaviors of risk have decreased. So I feel like you really can't get away from research. It is in everything that we do.
Was going into a research role your goal coming out of graduation?
No, it really wasn't. At the time when I graduated, the experience that stood out the most out of my CV at the time was actually the Florey Institute volunteering that I did, where I administered the battery of memory tests. And that was getting picked up the most out of my CV. And obviously, that applied so much to research positions. And that was actually my foot in the door.
So it
Exactly.
sounds like you got real value out of a volunteer position as you've navigated your career path. And I'm wondering if you have any other tips or tricks of advice that you might be giving to current students who are about to embark on their own career journeys following graduation.
To be honest, my number one tip and the one thing that I would say to my old self is just get practical experience as early as you can. Experience is the one thing that may differentiate your CV from somebody else's. And practical experience is not always easy to obtain. Sometimes it may not be a paid position. But if there is an opportunity to volunteer for anything, it could just be at a lab or at a community organization. But getting practical experience early has really made it for me and changed the game for me. And I'm not even sure whether I would be here today if I hadn't just taken up that opportunity.
Thinking about the future, is there any big issue that you see in the work that you're doing that students studying psychology today might be able to take on and tackle?
Yes. I feel like the one big issue in my role is the component of vicarious trauma that we might get from our clients and how to organize your time in order to be able to have that time to self-care. And I feel like if students today might be able to maybe if students might be curious to know what to do in certain situations or how to navigate vicarious trauma. Maybe they might learn more or be more prepared when they actually do start work.
I think it's important to end on self-care in that, we can't assist other people if our buckets ourselves are not full. So we need to take care of
100%.
ourselves as well as the people around us. So I think that's just a really great point to end on. Emily, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been lovely chatting with you.
Lovely chatting to you as well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Professionally Psyched. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the ongoing support of our Psych community. If you'd like to show your support or if you want us to cover anything on the pod, reach out via our emails, and don't forget you can listen to full episodes on Spotify.